wanted to reflect on some mindsets that we have when it comes to creativity or even starting something. I was noticing when I was traveling this weekend, I posted a video yesterday about my travels, that there's certain limitations to travel that make travel really exciting. There's this excitement, like, oh, it's something new. Also this stress, kind of fear of, I've never been here before. What if this happens? I'm unfamiliar with this area. Some things are just out of your control. My light went off in my lamp, so I turned on another light. So some things are out of your control, but there are new things. There's limitations. When I was traveling, I didn't have access to a kitchen. I didn't have access to a car. I didn't have access to a grocery store. I had to make decisions based on what was available to me. I was confined. When you transfer those parameters into another area like music or cooking, again, there's these parameters, and then you get to kind of work within them, and it creates something really great. And when I think about food from Italy or Japanese sushi or ramen, there is this limitation because the traditional food, they didn't have access to all these trade routes like today. And so they really only could work with certain ingredients and then really refine and perfect and bring out the best flavors in them. In Italy, tomatoes, onions, garlic, basil, cheese, right? And so from those ingredients, something really good can happen, and you don't need everything. If you take this approach, you bring it to creating videos, creating music, creating art. It's okay to be limited in your skill. It's okay to be limited in your time. And it's okay to be limited in your resources, because everybody's got to start somewhere. If you're only going to produce or you're only going to share when you've reached the height of where you could be, then it's actually likely that it will never happen. When you only see the edited, performance, mastered piece that is recorded, then you don't see the blemishes of before. And there were so many critiques of this in the fashion industry with Photoshop. Yeah, just kind of like, oh, this is not what this person's face looks like. That's not what their actual body looks like. And just understanding that there is an ideal that you want to reach, but you can also celebrate the process of how you got there. I'm making bread. I'm proofing bread. This is my third loaf that I'm baking. I made one 2-hour rise and then an 18-hour rise previously, and so now I'm trying this 12-hour proof. I know that there could be way better bread out there. Like, you go to France and eat some of their baguettes, but at the same time, there's so much pride that I can learn something with just flour, sea salt, yeast, and water. I know I can get better, but I gotta start somewhere. It's different too when I go to the store, I wait in line, I pay for something, I wait for it, and then I eat it. It's different than me assembling the raw ingredients and then waiting for the process. And then when I'm eating it, there is a sense of pride in knowing, like, hey, I actually made this in my own hands, and it's okay if it's a little imperfect, because such is life. And actually don't know anybody who has the perfect life, because it's an ideal, and it's great to aspire for, but again, to celebrate the moments, the little baby steps. Sometimes you're going this way and then you go that way, or sometimes you feel like you're going backwards, but that's okay, because again, life is a journey. Embrace the process. Try to be creative. It is very attainable to have limited resources and then to make something beautiful out of those limitations. There's a resilience, and there's even a pride in knowing that you didn't have everything. You didn't have all the money, you didn't have all the skills, you didn't have all the time, but you still worked with what you had, and it was something to be proud of. There's something so warm and cozy about being at home when it's rainy and cloudy outside, putting on an apron and spending some time in the warm kitchen. I proofed this bread last night. It's a 12-hour proof, as you saw in the first clip in this video. I made it at 10:50 last night. Now I am just about to put it in the oven. I'm kneading it one last time, just kind of folding it over each other and then making it into this nice round ball. And then I'm going to score it a little bit. I'm going to put some flour on top. I tried to use this knife and it didn't really work. So I'm going to go grab another one. This one wasn't sharp enough to kind of cut through. So I'm grabbing another knife. It's actually a cheese knife, part of a charcuterie set, but it actually works really well for this bread. So I am just kind of scoring it, and then I'm taking a few other tools as I've been researching. So I got some floss out. I probably won't use the floss again because it didn't really work. I think it doesn't make the deep cuts that really show after you bake. And this is the second time I tried using floss, so I might not use it as much. And then I have this X-Acto blade where I just kind of cut out these little designs and little slits in the process. Maybe next time I will change the camera angle so you can kind of see an overhead view of what that looks like. But kind of a sharp knife or a scoring knife will do. I just didn't have one. And as I was saying earlier, just be creative. I have this X-Acto knife and that's what I'm using. Then after that, I have this toothpick. I just stab holes everywhere. It's kind of fun. It reminds me a little bit of popping bubble wrap, even though it has a completely different texture. But it's really fun. The dough is very springy, so as soon as I was poking holes in it, it kind of sprang back, which also shows that it's ready to go and get baked. So what I did is, when I did my second proofing, I drizzled some olive oil, and I also preheated the oven with the Dutch oven. So the Dutch oven is what kind of creates this really nice steam environment, so you can get really crispy crust on the outside. And I just dusted off the top of the bread with some flour, just so it'll look kind of nice and artisan when I take it out. I baked the first bread without any parchment paper, and it's very easy to do that. You can just slide it right out, but I chose to bake with parchment paper because it's just a little easier on the cleanup. I'm also trying this ice cube method. So you can put ice cubes inside the very hot Dutch oven, which has been preheating with the oven for about half an hour. When you put the ice cubes into the really hot Dutch oven, it creates steam, which makes the bread mimic what a commercial oven would do. And what that does is it just allows the crust to be super crispy on the outside, but then the bread on the inside stays nice and chewy. So that's the first try. Now you can kind of see how it's scored. I didn't show you the up close because I didn't want the dough to fall, and the Dutch oven is hot. This ice cube method worked really well. I will definitely do it again. There's a sizzle that you can hear when I put the ice cubes in. I put the ice cubes in, then I put the lid on, and I will bake it in the oven for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, I will take the lid off and let it spend the next 15 minutes getting that crust extra crispy and kind of browning the color. So that's kind of how you prep bread. It's really easy and not as intimidating as you think. This is the first 30 minutes. So I took the lid off, put it in for another 15. It is beautiful. It turned out so good. It was so crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. I ate so many slices before I remembered to take a picture. And then I made this little breakfast open face sandwich with melted cheese, turkey, and a fried egg on top. And it was so good. I made a second cup of coffee to pair with the food. Kind of forgot to film until I was about halfway through, but delicious. Then I spent the rest of the day in meal prep world. I marinated chicken, then I air fried broccoli and potatoes, prepped a bunch of meals for my week ahead, and it was absolutely delicious. Made a chicken broth out of the soup and had noodles for dinner.